Okay, so a little bit of good news. A little bit of good news here. The X-rays for Matthew Stafford's thumb, for his thumb injury, have come back negative. They have come back negative. No major surgery, it looks like, will need to be done. It looks like he has dodged a bullet here. Now, that is quite a relief because speaking for me, I just last night recorded a Matthew Stafford hype video where I pretty much there was an article on Turf Show Times that had a pretty cool compilation of little video clips from Twitter of Matthew Stafford just slinging the football to, around and looking really good. Pardon me. Looking good, and it was pretty awesome. He had a no-look pass. He's just looking really good in practice. So I upload that. I wake up the next morning to go to work. I go to work, and less than 24 hours from when I uploaded that video, I'm listening to Mr. Sosa on the Locked On Rams podcast. It's a pretty good podcast. You should check it out. Explaining how Matthew Stafford had injured his thumb at the very end of the practice on Monday, I believe it was. And they really weren't sure what it was. He had heard it, and basically everyone was just pretty much holding their breath. So let's get into this a little bit. He will be back on the field soon. There was a scary moment for the Los Angeles Rams occurred Monday when Matthew Stafford had an apparent injury to his surgically repaired thumb when it came into contact with another player's helmet. But on Tuesday, Ian Rappaport reported that X-rays were negative and Stafford would only miss a couple days of practice with a swollen thumb. And as you can see here, the tweet from Mr. Ian here, it says, quarterback Matthew Stafford has a swollen thumb after hitting it on a helmet in practice. But X-rays were negative, source said. He'll likely miss a few days, but nothing major. That is so good. that is so good, because I was a little worried when I had heard the news this morning, because what are the odds? What are the odds, man? I know Jared Goff had a similar injury at the end of last season, and here comes our new quarterback that we traded for having a scary moment here. Continuing on. Backup quarterback John Wolford will more than likely get a couple of days of valuable reps with the first team offense. The injury bug has not been kind to the Rams players this offseason, beginning with a season-ending injury to running back Cam Akers, and rookies Robert Rochelle and Bobby Brown, the third needing surgery. Both surgeries have appeared to have gone well, and so we'll get to that in a second. I have always been very high on John Wolford, so I want them to really, and I'm sure they will, be cautious with him. Give him a few extra days rest, because the last thing, he's not going to play the preseason anyway. Stafford, he's because McVay doesn't like to play his starters, so give him some rest days. It stinks that they don't necessarily have a lot of practice time these days for training camp. And that time is so valuable for him to get into chemistry with his wide receivers and running backs. But at the same time, he looks like he is doing quite well. He was performing pretty well. He seems to have been building this chemistry. So I don't see how a few more days off will really hurt that growth, as they say. So definitely take it slow with him. I'm high on John Wolford if throughout today, not knowing how severe the injury was, I was okay with if it came down to a situation where John Wolford had to start the season. Like I'm okay with that. Like honestly, I'd be willing to do that if it meant just being extra cautious with Matthew, just so he doesn't risk re-aggravating his thumb or injuring it any further. Because evidently he had surgery done to it this past March, and it's this is just a lucky break, man, because it's just a swollen thumb here. Robert Rochelle had surgery for his wrist. Him and Bobby Brown apparently were injured. I believe it was doing drills where they have to punch the ball out, and while doing that, they injured the. He injured his wrist. Bobby Brown injured, I believe, his UCL, if I'm correct. So, from what I hear, Bobby Brown should be back relatively soon. While Robert Rochelle is a little up in the air. He has been having a pretty good camp from what I hear, but it stinks, that a young guy loses those reps. But I feel like he's gonna be just fine though. Ending here, in a press conference yesterday, Sean McVay mentioned taking some extra precautions going forward to avoid any more injuries this camp. And he says here, I feel stupid that I didn't implement some of the things to prevent that. I've seen some teams around the league have those shells on their helmets that you can at least soften the blow. When you do come down on the top of the helmet, hopefully you don't have to learn the hard way. You start implementing things like that to try to just minimize the risk of injury. So, looks like we have dodged a bullet here. Bit of a concern for a few hours, but it looks like Stafford has there's no damage to the thumb. It's just a little swollen. So he's basically just going to have a few days off, and he should be good to go. We mentioned Robert Rochelle, Bobby Brown, their situations. The Rams have been bit by the injury bug a little bit this year. Cam Akers is out for the year. Jacob Harris is supposedly supposed to be out for 2 to 3 weeks, but according to Jordan Rodriguez, he is well enough to at least participate in individual drills, so it looks like he might be back sooner than expected. So, from that standpoint, we've been bit a little bit by the injury bug, but we should be okay. Really dodged a bullet here, so definitely we'll see how long they're gonna keep him out. But from what I'm seeing, it should be in the clear. So definitely give this man John Wolford some reps, let Matthew Stafford rest, and we should be good to go. All right, man. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord.